Let's talk a little bit about vaccinations and vaccine schedules. There's a lot of folks out there that are saying, oh, you only ever need one vaccine. That may or may not be true. Now, most of the way I developed my protocols that I use in my clinical practice was based on the research of Dr. Ron Schultz and Dr. Gene Dodds. And what they said again at that time was that most likely, if we gave a vaccination, and this is the key thing, if the dog's immune system is able to respond to it, then we will see a very profound response in a blood titer or blood test. And what that means is that dog's immune system has been able to remount an antibody response to that thing. Now, this works really well for viral diseases. However, for bacterial diseases like leptospirosis, kennel cough, Lyme disease, the vaccines really just don't last more than a year. And there's a great deal of discussion about, do we really need all those vaccines for every pet? So here's what I'd encourage you to do. Leptospirosis did just get added to the core vaccines, but what I'd encourage you to do, regardless, how much time does your pet spend outside? How much exposure will it have to places where it could potentially pick up the disease? And how old is your pet? And I think you can also do some research by Googling incidents of whatever it is you're concerned about in your area to know how much concern you should have for whether your pet could contract whatever the thing is. There also was a study that a veterinary homeopath did where she took puppies and took them to dog parks that were not heavily frequented for 2-3 minutes, several times over the next 6 weeks, and what she found is that they did indeed mount an adequate response to parvovirus. Because this virus is ubiquitous, every time your dog goes out and sniffs, it's essentially re-inoculating itself. So this is a thing that we have very little concern that the pet will ever have a low titer on. As pets age, we know that their distemper titers drop. And the question is, what's the risk of exposure for your pet? Also, in the rabies 7-year challenge study, what Dr. Dodds and Dr. Schultz found was that after 4 years, the titer levels of pets that previously had protective levels of rabies vaccine titer antibody present dropped below what was considered to be protective. At 5 years, approximately 40% of them were unprotected. Now, this is really frustrating because Dr. Schultz's theory has always been if you can show protective titers for roughly 7 years, probably that dog or that cat is protected for the lifetime. And indeed, some of those pets did show protective titers out 7 years. Now, what the theory was is that perhaps these dogs had innate or cell-mediated immune response still available to that virus. And so to test that theory, they did a USDA trial where they took these animals that had been previously vaccinated into a USDA facility. There was a group of control animals that had not been vaccinated, and they exposed both groups to a live virus of rabies. Now, the USDA's deal is that 90% of the pets exposed to the live rabies virus must contract the disease to show that it was a valid test. Unfortunately, only 89% of the dogs and cats in the study that were unvaccinated, the control animals, contracted rabies. So the USDA said, not a valid study. 0% of the previously vaccinated dogs, whether they had titers visible on their blood results or not, contracted fulminant rabies. This is a hot topic right now. I am not a person that says there's no need for vaccines. I treated way too much parvo early in my career. It's horrible. You don't want to go there, but think your way through it.